Hi, I'm Daryl Race Jr., and I'll be telling you about Part 3, The Threshing Floor by James Baldwin in his book, Go Tell It on the Mountain. Now, the main characters is John, who is trying to redeem himself and wash himself of all of his sins throughout most of the Part 3 of The Threshing Floor. And the first scene opens up with him being somewhat possessed. And then there's Gabriel, who is John's father, but unknown to John, but known to the reader, Gabriel is not John's biological father. Elizabeth, who is John's actual biological mother, is raised by her religious aunt, and her boyfriend Richard killed himself after they moved north while she was pregnant with John, which is how Gabriel then stepped in and said he would be John's stepfather. Elisha is the preacher and the leader of the congregation that John looks up to a lot. So, they're the main characters. All right, now for the plot summary, John is pretty much on the floor in the very beginning of the church looking up to God, and he is terrified of sin as well as the devil. He feels possessed and hears malicious voice telling him to leave the church and go into the world because everybody knows the world is separate from God, or that whole uh, thing that's in the Bible of the earth being the devil's dwelling place and stuff like that. And John really wants to be saved, and he really wants to be like Elisha, who is the cold-hearted priest. But while he is feeling possessed in a way, Gabriel tells John, well, Gabriel, who's John's father, tells John that he is the devil's son and he will beat it out of him. And the voice in John's head is telling him that all niggers had came from the most undutiful of Noah's sons. And in the throughout the story, the one of the undutiful son that they're talking about, that's Noah's, is caught looking at another man naked in the Bible. So John does not understand why his father does not love him, but John does not know that Gabriel is his stepfather. He also does not know that Gabriel does not dislike him, but he's more concerned with his own concealed past. John is then baptized close to the end of the story, and he is born again. Through baptism, the congregation believes John to be saved, and John and Elisha walk home together after salvation is over, and they run into Elizabeth and his parents. Elisha gives John a holy kiss and makes sure he remembers this day he was saved. Now, the themes I came up with was rebirth, which was in the story, was just simply through the baptism brings salvation. And then John's conflict with Gabriel, and it's always the theme of another man standing between you and your relationship with God. So in this case, it would be John's conflict with Gabriel affects his religious decisions and as well as his views of himself. Another theme is racism, and Gabriel does not trust white people, and John receives praise from both whites and blacks, which considers more to Gabriel's resentment of John. Now, the questions I came up with is, how is one saved in the congregation? And basically the answer to that would be, it's simply through baptism. There's no confession or anything like that. Um, what the other question is, how did James Baldwin allude to his life throughout the story? And this is where the knowing about the undutiful sons of Noah really comes in, because James Baldwin was actually gay. So that's why he kept relating it, that that son of Noah, to John, because of his whole gay ordeal. And actually John is supposed to be James Baldwin in a way. So that would be my third question. Why does Baldwin choose to compare John to the accursed son of Noah? So those questions tie into each other, actually. Now, for my works cited, I went to Oxford, and the biography.com with James Baldwin for James Baldwin information. Now, some information about James Baldwin. He was born on August 2nd and died in November 30th, 1987. August 2nd, 1924. Excuse me. He was born in Harlem, New York. Died in Saint Paul de France, in France. Spoke his thoughts and was definitely a leader for African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement, and he was very skilled at expressing his feelings about racism and race relations. He also had 8 siblings. Well, that's pretty much the end of my project, and I hope that you can really relate to this story, even if you don't really go through anything like the story did, because it's a lot. It's really true to life and the nature of Christianity when there's always somebody that does not approve of you or does not approve of your relationship with God or feels like you're not good enough to be saved. And I guess, and from my perspective, I'm guessing that James Baldwin put that with the character of Gabriel because James Baldwin being a gay male and the whole thing with gays not being loved by God and things of that nature. I guess that would be what he why he decided to write the way he did about his childhood. So that's my project. Thank you for watching.